My name is Alan, and for 5 years, I thought I was building a peaceful life with the woman I loved and the stepdaughter I tried to accept. I gave them everything, my heart, my home, my trust. But nothing could have prepared me for the day my wife looked me in the eye and told me she was leaving, to stay with the same man who once beat her senseless. They thought I'd break. They thought I'd wait. What they didn't know was, I had a plan, and when I executed it, I made sure neither of them would ever forget what it cost to betray me. The morning sun spilled through the kitchen window, casting a golden glow across the room that felt almost cruel in contrast to the emptiness growing inside me. I sat at the breakfast table, hands wrapped around a warm mug of black coffee, trying to find comfort in routine. Across from me sat my wife, Monica. She was absent-mindedly stirring her tea, her eyes darting back and forth across the pages of the local newspaper, not really reading, just pretending. The spoon clinked softly against the ceramic cup, a sound that used to be soothing. Now it felt hollow. To my right, her daughter Zoe sat glued to her phone, thumbs flying, expression flat. The faint blue glow of the screen reflected off her face, casting shadows that made her look even more distant. She didn't speak. She never did anymore, at least not to me. There was a time when mornings were sacred in our home. Time when we'd laugh over spilled coffee, argue playfully over crossword clues, or share whispers while Zoe rushed to get ready for school. That time felt like another life, one I couldn't quite get back to, no matter how hard I tried. I stared down into my mug. 5 years of marriage. That's what we had built. 5 years of shared memories, blended lives, laughter, tears, struggles, and victories. And now, it all felt like it was slipping through my fingers like sand. Slowly, quietly, painfully. Monica had been through a lot before I met her. Her first marriage to Greg was nothing short of a nightmare. Chaotic, violent, and deeply traumatic. He'd been arrested after one of his drunken rampages left her bruised and broken. She never spoke much about that time, but I could see the trauma in the way her voice tensed whenever his name came up, or how she flinched at loud noises. Greg was her past, a monster she had barely escaped from. And yet, somehow, that past was creeping back into our present. We met by chance. A dinner party neither of us wanted to attend. I remember thinking how fake it all felt until I saw her smile. Warm, hesitant, but genuine. Something about her drew me in. We talked for hours that night. And when she laughed, really laughed, it felt like the world paused to listen. It was a year of dating before we tied the knot. And with her came Zoe, 18 now, guarded, cold, and always at a distance. I never tried to replace her father. I knew that role was off limits. She was polite at best, indifferent at worst. She tolerated me, and that was all I could ask for. I did my best to find a place in their lives that felt respectful, even if it meant standing on the edges of their bond. But lately, even that small space I'd carved out felt like it was being pushed away. Monica had become a stranger in our home. The affection, the closeness, the simple joy of being in each other's company, it had all eroded. Bit by bit. First, it was the missing goodnight kisses. Then the excuses, she was tired, stressed, needed space. Then came the phone, always in her hand, screen facing down whenever I entered the room. She'd smile at it like she used to smile at me. I noticed everything. The way her mood changed with every text. The way she laughed under her breath, only to fall silent when she noticed me watching. I'm not a fool. These weren't just coincidences. They were red flags, bright, blazing warnings I could no longer ignore. I tried not to jump to conclusions at first. Maybe I was overthinking it. Maybe it was work stress, or hormonal changes, or just a rough patch. I even blamed myself for a while. Maybe I wasn't giving her enough attention. Maybe I wasn't enough of a man. But the more I reasoned, the more my gut screamed at me. Every night, I lay awake in bed while she turned her back to me, scrolling on her phone under the blanket's edge. I'd pretend to be asleep, just to hear her whispering. Once, I leaned in and caught just 2 words, "I miss you." My blood ran cold. I couldn't take the guessing anymore. The slow erosion of sanity, the torture of not knowing. So I did what I never thought I would. I hired a private investigator. $2,000 for clarity. That's what I told myself. While I waited for the results, I tried to keep it together. I still made her coffee every morning. I still asked how her day was, even though her answers were as hollow as her smile. I still acted like the loving husband, all while wondering if I was just playing the fool. And today, here I sat, staring at her across the table, the sun dancing in her hair like it was trying to remind me of the woman I once fell in love with. But all I saw now was someone hiding something. Someone who had made a decision and was waiting for the right moment to reveal it. The silence between us was deafening. Zoe's fingers tapped against her phone screen like ticking clock hands, counting down to something I couldn't stop. I took another sip of coffee, willing my heartbeat to slow, knowing deep down, this breakfast would be the last normal moment we'd ever have. Because soon, I'd have my answers. And everything would change. The investigator called me at 10:14 a.m., just as I was stepping out of a meeting at work. His voice was calm, too calm, like someone trained to deliver devastating news without emotion. "Alan," he said, "you were right to trust your instincts. She's been seeing someone. A man named Gregory Stone. Matches the ex-husband you told me about." I didn't say a word. I just stood there in the hallway, phone pressed to my ear, while the rest of the world moved in slow motion around me. He continued, methodical and professional. "They've met 3 times in the last 10 days. Once at a hotel, twice at his place. I have pictures, timestamps, videos. Everything you asked for. Everything I feared." The line went silent for a second as I tried to breathe through the pressure building in my chest. My throat felt tight, like something thick and suffocating had wrapped around it. The kind of truth you never want, but can't unhear once it's spoken. "Email them to me," I finally whispered, my voice distant, almost mechanical. "All of it." I hung up, stepped outside into the parking lot, and let the cold spring wind hit my face. I needed it to jolt me back into reality, to keep me from falling apart. For a long moment, I stood there staring at the horizon, wondering how I had ended up here. How had I given so much of myself to a woman who still kept pieces of her past hidden like secrets in a locked drawer? Greg. The very name made my skin crawl. That man had left Monica battered, physically and emotionally. I remembered the photos she once showed me, faded images of bruises on her arms, a fractured wrist, a swollen lip. She had cried in my arms the night she opened up about him, told me she was never going back, that he was a mistake she'd buried in the past. Now, that past was in her present and destroying our future. When I got home that evening, the house was unusually quiet. Monica was in the kitchen cooking something that smelled like rosemary and lemon, but the scent only made me nauseous. Zoe wasn't around, probably holed up in her room, avoiding me as usual. I walked in like nothing had changed, because on the surface, nothing had. But inside, everything had shifted. "Hey." Monica greeted me with that forced smile she'd been wearing like a mask for months now. "Hey." I replied, my tone just as fake. I kissed her on the cheek, but my lips barely touched her skin. She didn't notice, or maybe she didn't care. We ate dinner in near silence. I watched the way she moved, graceful but tense, as if she was always bracing for a question I hadn't yet asked. Her phone buzzed twice during the meal. She flipped it over casually, but never read the messages. Later that night, while she showered, I sat on the edge of the bed and opened my email. The pictures were all there, high resolution, undeniable. One showed them holding hands in a hotel parking lot. Another, inside a dimly lit bar, her head resting on his shoulder, smiling. And then there were the worst ones, the grainy, black and white shots taken through a cracked motel blind. Intimate moments. Moments that no wife should share with any man, let alone the one who once broke her bones. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, my eyes burning, my hands trembling slightly as I closed the laptop. Grief didn't hit me like a tidal wave. It came slow, like a leak in the ceiling, dripping doubt and rage into my heart one drop at a time. She came out of the shower wrapped in a towel, her hair damp, her face flushed. She smiled when she saw me. "Long day." I forced a nod. "Yeah, something like that." She climbed into bed beside me and turned off the light. A minute later, her breathing steadied. She was asleep. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling. I could feel the warmth of her body beside me, but it brought no comfort. Just confusion. Just betrayal. The next morning, I called my lawyer. "I need a temporary separation agreement," I said flatly. "Do you want to talk about it?" he asked gently. "No," I replied. "Just draw it up. 30 days. No financial obligations. I want it ready within 24 hours. I wasn't sure what I was going to do next. I just knew I needed options. Leverage. A plan. And I wasn't going to tip my hand too early. When I walked into the kitchen later that day, Monica looked up from her coffee and smiled, like everything was fine. Like our marriage wasn't hanging by a thread. I smiled back, calm, controlled, measured. Because if she thought she was the only one playing a game, she had no idea who she was playing against. It happened the next morning, faster than I expected. Monica sat across from me again, that same seat at the kitchen table, her fingers nervously folding the corner of the newspaper like it was some kind of lifeline. The smell of toast lingered in the air, the coffee pot hissed behind me, and Zoe sat nearby, eyes once again buried in her phone, chewing her breakfast like a machine, present, but detached. I knew what was coming. I had known since the moment I saw the photos. But I wanted to hear her say it. I wanted to see if she could look me in the eye while doing it. She cleared her throat. "Alan," she began, her voice soft, like a mother breaking bad news to a child. "I need to talk to you." I set my mug down slowly, looked straight at her. "Go ahead." She hesitated, eyes flicking toward Zoe for a brief second. Then back to me. "I'll be going away just for a little while." "How long is a little while?" I asked, keeping my tone level. She fidgeted, looking down at her tea. "A month." "A month," I repeated, letting the word hang in the air. "Yes," she said, gaining a little confidence. "I'll be staying with Greg." There it was. She'd said it. And for a moment, I just sat there, letting it burn. "His birthday is coming up," she continued, like that was some reasonable justification. "I want to help him through a rough patch. Be there for him. You know, just for support." I leaned back in my chair, felt the wood creak beneath me. My heart was pounding, but my face was calm, mask in place, every muscle controlled. "So let me get this straight," I said, slow and deliberate. "You're going to clean his house, cook his meals, and, what, sleep with him too? Is that the support you're talking about? Or is he just paying you for companionship now?" Her eyes widened in shock. "What the hell, Alan? I'm not a prostitute." "No." I shot back, sharp now. "You just want to live with your ex-husband for a month, in his house, in his bed, but it's not cheating, right?" "It's not," she said firmly, crossing her arms. "I told you about it. I'm not sneaking around. I'm being honest with you. That's not cheating." The logic made my head spin. "So, because you told me first," I said, incredulous, "that means you're free to go play house with the same man who used to beat you half to death? And you expect me to just wait here? For you to come back when you're done?" From the corner of the room, Zoe spoke for the first time. She didn't even look up from her phone. "She has desires too, Alan. You don't own her. She's not your slave." The words hit me harder than any slap. Not just because of what she said, but because of how she said it. Cold. Dismissive. Like I was the villain here. Like I was the one breaking vows. I turned to her slowly, eyes narrowed. "And you think this is okay, Zoe? Your mother throwing away her marriage for a month with a man who once destroyed her?" She shrugged. "She's free to drink from any watering hole she wants. That's what you always said about choice, right?" A smirk tugged at her lips. I stared at her for a long time, then back at Monica. Everything inside me felt like it was cracking. I took a deep breath, then slowly raised my hands. "If this is what both of you want, I won't stand in the way. But we're making it official." Monica's eyes narrowed. "Official?" "Yes," I said. "You'll sign a separation agreement. For the next 30 days, we're not married, at least not on paper. I won't be responsible for you or your daughter. No money, no bills. You'll be on your own. And during that time, I'll be free to do whatever I want. Satisfy my desires, as you say." Her face twitched. For the first time, I saw her uncertainty. "You're serious?" "As a heart attack," I said. Zoe let out a small, sarcastic laugh. "Wow. Didn't know you had it in you, Alan." I turned to her, smiling calmly. "Oh, Zoe, you have no idea." Then I stood up, kissed Monica on the forehead, cold, deliberate, and walked out of the room. They thought they had all the power. They had no idea what storm was coming. The house was quiet the next morning, but not in a peaceful way. It was the stillness before a storm, the kind where the air thickens and the silence feels like it's watching you. I was in the living room, sitting across from my lawyer, David, as he reviewed the papers I asked him to draft. Monica was upstairs packing. Zoe's footsteps thudded back and forth down the hall, but neither of them came downstairs. David tapped his pen against the last page. "You sure you want to do this, Alan?" "I've never been more certain," I said, my voice low, measured. "I want her signature. Today." He nodded and started organizing the documents into a neat stack. "It's airtight. 30-day legal separation. No financial responsibilities on your part. You're free to do what you want during that period, and so is she. No spousal claims can be made during this time. No liability. No strings. Perfect. I didn't care if she thought she was manipulating the situation. I wanted it in writing. I wanted her to put pen to paper and formally declare that I meant nothing to her for the next 30 days. I wanted her to believe she was free, because I had plans for what that freedom would cost her. I called Monica down. She came into the room wearing a sundress I hadn't seen in years. Her makeup was fresh, her hair curled slightly at the ends. She looked happy, like she was about to take a trip to the beach, not walk out of our marriage. "What's this?" she asked, eyeing the documents. "A formality," I said casually. "You're going to be gone for 30 days. I just want us both protected. No obligations. No expectations. You're free to do what you want, and so am I." Her eyes narrowed. "Why do I feel like there's a catch?" "There isn't," I replied, calm and confident. "You said it wasn't cheating because you told me. So, I'm simply clearing the path. This way, you don't even have to pretend." David slid the pen toward her. To my surprise, she didn't even read the papers. She just smiled faintly and signed at the bottom of each page, like it was a casual delivery receipt. Zoe appeared behind her, arms crossed, grinning like this was a win. "Thank you, Alan," Monica said, her voice syrupy and sweet. "I appreciate you being mature about this." "Mature," I repeated with a nod, biting back the urge to laugh. "Of course." Later that evening, Monica buzzed around the bedroom, stuffing outfits and shoes into a designer suitcase I'd bought her last Christmas. She looked vibrant, alive, even. I stood by the doorway with my arms folded, watching. "You really went all out," I said. She looked up, unbothered. "I'm just excited. This break is exactly what we need." I smiled faintly. "Oh, don't worry. I'll make the most of it." She walked over and kissed me on the cheek. "When I come back, things will be different. I promise." "They already are," I whispered as she turned away. The next morning, she and Zoe left together. No fanfare. No goodbye hugs. Monica waved like she was heading to a retreat. Zoe didn't even glance back. I stood in the driveway and watched their car disappear around the corner, the weight in my chest slowly giving way to a strange, quiet clarity. It had begun. By noon, I was sitting in front of my laptop, bank accounts pulled up. I initiated a full withdrawal, everything I'd earned, saved, invested, transferred to an offshore account under my name only. Over $2 million gone from our joint accounts in the blink of an eye. Next, I made 2 calls, one to the dealership and one to a towing service. Zoe's car was gone by the end of the day. Sold. Mine now. Monica's car? Same fate. She loved that thing. Treated it like a trophy. Now Greg could drive her around. Let him pay for her gas. Let him buy her tires. They wanted freedom. I gave it to them. And while they were settling in with their shiny second chance, I booked a one-way ticket to Jamaica. 5-star resort. Ocean view. No obligations. No guilt. I poured myself a drink and toasted the silence of the house. It felt cleaner now, like their absence had scrubbed the walls. I sat back in my chair, raised my glass, and let the moment sink in. They thought I was the fool. They had no idea I had just flipped the board. And now, it was my turn to play. 3 days had passed since Monica and Zoe drove off to their little fantasy reunion with Greg. And not once had I received a call, a text, or even a second thought from either of them. That suited me just fine. The silence was peaceful, more peaceful than I had felt in years. No cold stares from Zoe. No forced conversations with Monica. Just me, the quiet hum of the refrigerator, and the click of my keyboard as I finalized my next steps. By now, the joint account had been completely drained, every last cent, down to the decimal. I made sure the transfers to the offshore account were masked behind layers of transactions. Legal, airtight, and completely out of Monica's reach. Over $2 million of my hard-earned money. Money that had funded Zoe's designer shoes, Monica's salon appointments, the backyard renovations, the summer vacations, now belonged solely to me. I wasn't done. That morning, I walked out to the driveway and stared at the 2 empty parking spots where their cars used to be. Zoe's little red Honda gone. Sold. She loved that car, even if she complained about the color. Said it didn't match her aesthetic. Well, now she could match whatever aesthetic she wanted on foot. Or better yet, she could ask her biological father, Greg, to buy her a new one. Let him shoulder the cost for once. Monica's car? The white luxury SUV she flaunted like a crown everywhere she went. Also sold. Towed off the property yesterday, gone without a trace. She used to gloat about how it was the best thing I'd ever done for her. Funny how the best things suddenly became so disposable. I walked back inside and stood in the middle of the house. It was too big for one man, sure, but it was mine. And for years, I listened to Monica complain about how she wanted something cozier, something more like Greg's place. Well, now she had it. She was living in it. I could only imagine the surprise when she realized that nostalgic little house came with Greg's fists, his whiskey breath, and his uncontrollable rage. She thought she was going back to comfort. She was walking right back into hell. Around noon, I poured myself a whiskey, Jack Daniels, on the rocks. I took a long sip, savoring the warmth sliding down my throat. The house was silent except for the ticking of the wall clock. The day stretched out in front of me like an open road, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel stuck. That's when the phone rang. It was Monica. I didn't answer. Then Zoe. Decline. Then both, back to back, over and over again, like someone pounding on a door in a panic. I let them call. Let them sweat. Let the reality of what I'd done start to sink in. I could picture it now. Monica logging into the bank app, confusion turning to panic as she saw zeros across every account. Zoe discovering her car was missing. The silence of privilege being ripped away. By evening, the calls turned into messages. Some angry, some desperate, some guilt-ridden. I still didn't respond. The next day, they tried again. And the day after that. Finally, on the third day, I picked up. Where are you? Monica's voice was breathless, barely held together. I've been calling for days. Why haven't you answered? I called the house, and no one. I've been busy, I said calmly, sipping my drink. Taking care of my desires. Isn't that what you told me I could do? She fell silent. Then came the anger. You emptied the accounts. You sold Zoe's car. You took everything. I took what was mine, I interrupted flatly. You made it very clear I had 30 days to do as I pleased. I'm simply exercising the freedom you so generously gave me. This is insane, she snapped. You're punishing me because I told you the truth? Because I was honest. You weren't honest, I said sharply. You were shameless. You stood in front of me and told me you were going to sleep with your ex-husband and somehow convinced yourself that wasn't cheating. You made your bed, Monica. Now sleep in it. She tried to fire back, but I ended the call before she could. I wasn't interested in her excuses. Not anymore. That night, I booked my next flight. Jamaica had been fun, but I needed something further. Cleaner. Permanent. Thailand. It was time to start over somewhere no one knew my name. Monica thought she'd walked away with everything. She didn't realize I'd already taken it all back, and I was just getting started. By the time I touched down in Jamaica, I felt lighter, like I'd shed a skin I'd worn far too long. The resort greeted me with warm breezes and a welcome drink, the kind with fruit skewers and a splash of rum, just sweet enough to numb the bitterness I left behind. My suite overlooked the ocean, the kind of view Monica always said she wanted. She used to dream about beaches, cocktails, massages by the water. And now I had all that. Alone. And loving it. My days were filled with sunrise swims, private chefs, and the company of a charming Russian woman named Alina, blonde, mid-20s, and everything Monica had long stopped being. Attentive, warm, curious. She didn't know my whole story, and she didn't need to. All she had to know was that I was a man rebuilding himself, and paying well for peace and pleasure. Meanwhile, back home, the fire I'd set was finally spreading. On the fourth day, the calls started again. First it was Monica, voice shaky, like she was trying to hold it together. Alan, please. I tried calling the bank. The college fund is gone. Where's the money? I took a slow sip of whiskey and smiled into the receiver. Taking care of my desires, Monica. Exactly like you said I could. There was silence on the other end. Then rage. You're not an honorable man. You're jealous of Greg. This is about your fragile ego. Click. I ended the call before her tantrum could gain momentum. I had no time for monologues from the woman who left me to play house with her abuser. The irony was delicious. She thought she could break the rules and still walk away clean. She thought I'd wait quietly, holding her place like a loyal dog. No. The next few days were more of the same. Zoe called too, her voice shrill and frantic, demanding explanations like she had the right. I ignored her. Every time my phone rang, It was a reminder that they had finally begun to feel the consequences. That maybe, for the first time, they understood what it meant to be discarded. On the 7th day, I answered again. Zoe's voice burst through the line. You sold my car. My college fund is gone. What the hell is wrong with you? No, I said calmly. I sold my car. I reclaimed my money. And I used it to enjoy the vacation of a lifetime. You said your mother can drink from any watering hole she wants. So can I. She screamed again, voice cracking with fury. What do I tell my friends? My car is gone. Tell them your loser stepfather sold it to fund his Jamaican escape from betrayal. Then tell them you're going to live with your real father. You know, the one your mom left for me. Should be a cozy reunion. There was a pause. A sharp inhale. Then the line went dead. Later that evening, Monica called again, this time sounding broken. You took everything. You'll regret this. Regret, I said, laughing softly. I regret not doing it sooner. And by the way, remember that legal separation document you signed? It freed me from everything. I spent every dime legally. You handed me the key, Monica. I'll call the police, she snapped. Please do. Then call my lawyer too. His number is in the envelope waiting at the house. Have a good night. I ended the call, stared out at the ocean, and smiled. By week's end, I was in Thailand. Bangkok, specifically. I'd been offered a position at a tech firm years ago, but never pursued it. Back then, I thought I had something to protect. A family. A life. Now, I had nothing tying me down, only opportunity ahead. From the plane, I messaged my lawyer. She's back today. Give her the gift. When Monica and Zoe returned home, they were greeted by a man in a tailored suit, holding a manila envelope. You've been served, he said, snapping a photo for legal proof before walking away. Inside the envelope were the divorce papers and something else. Photographs. All the ones the private investigator had taken. Every lie, every betrayal, frozen in time with date stamps. Monica and Greg at the motel. At the bar. In his bed. She knew then that I had known everything. That I'd let her walk into her own ruin. That while she laughed with her abuser, I had been planning my exit with surgical precision. I wasn't angry anymore. I was satisfied. She thought she could rewrite the rules. But I wrote the ending. The moment I landed in Bangkok, a strange calm washed over me. I stepped off the plane with nothing but a carry-on and freedom. True, bitter-earned freedom. The air was thick, humid, electric with possibility. I wasn't the man who boarded this plane. I had left him behind in a courtroom of betrayal and silence. What stood now was a man without a leash, without ties, and finally without guilt. My first call was to my lawyer. She's back today, I said. Give her the gift. He chuckled softly, understanding what that meant. The plan had been set in motion weeks ago, calculated to the hour. Monica and Zoe would return home expecting to reclaim their comfort, their status, their safety net. Instead, what waited for them was a man in a tailored suit and cold efficiency. You've been served, he said, handing Monica the manila envelope and snapping a photo as she stood frozen in the driveway. Inside was everything. The divorce papers, the time-stamped photos, the motel receipts, the stills from surveillance. Monica in Greg's arms. Monica tied to Greg's bed. I couldn't see her face in that moment, but I didn't need to. I knew the look. That dawning horror when someone realizes they were never in control. That what they thought was power was really just a rope they were tightening around their own neck. Zoe stood beside her, stunned, muttering something I would have paid to hear. Probably asking, "Dude, where's my car?" They called. Of course they did. Monica's name flashed on my screen first, then Zoe's, like clockwork. I waited until I was back at my hotel, legs stretched out on the balcony overlooking the city skyline, before I picked up. She didn't even wait for a greeting. "You're not an honorable man," she shouted. "You're a coward. A manipulative snake. You knew everything, and you said nothing. You let me go." I listened to her rage with the same detachment I might give to a soap opera on TV. When she finally stopped, I asked calmly, "Did you open the envelope?" Silence. Then the soft sound of rustling papers. You knew all this time." "Oh yes," I said. "Every single moment. Every lie. Every kiss. Every moan. I knew. You didn't try to stop me." "No," I replied. "Why would I stop you? You were so eager to ruin what we had." I simply stepped aside and let gravity do its job. Then I delivered the final cut. "The divorce has been filed under adultery. Everything is documented. Legally sound. And just so you know, I left a little money in the joint account. Should be enough to get you back to Greg's house. After all, you'll be his burden now." Her voice cracked with rage. "You didn't leave anything for Zoe's college. How could you do this to her?" "I didn't," I said flatly. "She's not my daughter. She's never treated me like family. She took his side, not mine. Let Greg pay for her tuition. He's her real father, isn't he?" There was another pause. Then I heard Zoe snatch the phone. "You ruined my life," she screamed. "You took my car, my college fund. What am I supposed to do now?" I didn't flinch. I'd prepared for this. All of it. "No, Zoe. I took my car. I reclaimed my money. You treated me like trash for years. You stood by your mother while she cheated, and you spat in my face with that smug smirk. Well, now you can walk to school. Or take the bus. Or better yet, Greg can carry you there." "What do I tell my friends?" she sobbed. "That my loser stepdad dumped us and ran away?" I smirked. "Tell them the truth. Tell them your stepdad had enough of being lied to, used, and humiliated, so he vanished into the world with his money and his pride. And that now, you live with your mother and the man who used to beat her. Let them chew on that." The line was quiet for a moment. Then Monica came back on, her voice dripping with desperation. "You stole from us. I'll call the cops. I'll make sure you pay." I leaned forward, my voice ice cold. "You signed away all your rights, Monica. 30 days of full separation. Financial freedom. Legal independence. I spent every dollar within the rules. You handed me the knife, and now you're surprised it cuts." "I have nothing," she whispered. "Nothing left." "Not my problem," I said. "For future complaints, direct all communication to my lawyer. His number's in the envelope. Good luck, Monica." I ended the call. The sun was setting over Bangkok, casting the city in gold. Below, people bustled along the streets, living their lives, unaware of the storm I had just walked away from. I lit a cigar, leaned back, and exhaled slowly. They wanted chaos. They got it. And I never even had to raise my voice. Weeks passed in Bangkok, and with each passing day, I felt a part of myself being reborn. I had no regrets, only clarity. Everything I'd done, every step I had taken, had been justified by the betrayal that started it all. Monica made her choice. Zoe made hers. And I simply stopped being the fool who enabled them. Then came the news I'd been expecting. Monica and Zoe had officially moved in with Greg. Poetic. It was the life they thought they wanted. The life they so confidently destroyed me for. But as always, fantasy doesn't survive reality for long. Greg hadn't changed. Not even a little. The man who once broke Monica's ribs now ruled that house with a bottle in one hand and a temper in the other. It didn't take long before the bruises started reappearing. The same cycle she once escaped had returned, but this time, there was no Alan to run to. No warm house. No safety net. Zoe had her own problems. Without a car or college fund, she walked to school or took the city bus, something she used to mock other kids for. The girl who once strutted around with designer bags and $1,000 sneakers now waited in the rain, hood up, eyes lowered, hoping no one recognized her. They were back in the life they'd both claimed to hate. Except now, they had no exit. Greg didn't have the resources I did. He didn't have patience, or tact, or restraint. He had fists and fury. And now he had to feed two mouths, one of them spoiled, the other shattered. The irony? They got exactly what they asked for. They just didn't ask what it would cost. As for me, I had started a new chapter. The tech firm in Bangkok welcomed me like a long-lost puzzle piece. I was working again, really working, focused, respected, alive. The apartment they set me up with was high-rise, minimalist, and perfect. Every evening, I'd walk along the Chao Phraya River, sipping cold beer and watching boats drift by under golden skies. Sometimes I'd sit with locals and listen to their stories. None of them knew what I'd left behind. None of them cared. Freedom, I learned, isn't just the absence of chains. It's the power to never look back. But Monica? She couldn't stop looking back. She tried to fight the divorce, of course. Her lawyer claimed that I had consented to her break, that I knew she'd be with Greg and accepted it. My attorney, sharp as ever, presented the photos, each one date stamped before the separation agreement was even signed. Monica had already broken our vows before she dared to speak a word of honesty. The judge barely looked up from the documents. He reviewed the evidence, leaned back in his chair, and said, "Tough luck, ma'am. You signed it. You broke it. There's nothing I can do." He denied her spousal support, denied her claim to Zoe's college fund. And when her lawyer tried to bring up child support, my attorney shut it down instantly. "Your Honor," he said, "Zoe is not biologically or legally Alan's daughter. He has never adopted her. He owes her nothing." The courtroom was silent. Then, as if to twist the knife, my lawyer made one final motion, that I had relinquished all financial and legal obligations due to a change in life direction. He presented documents showing I had donated the last of my remaining U.S. assets to charity, had renounced material wealth, and chosen a minimalist lifestyle abroad. The judge blinked, then chuckled. "Well," he said, shaking his head, "you certainly don't see that every day." And just like that, the gavel came down. Divorce granted. Claims denied. Case closed. When I heard that Monica cried in the parking lot after the hearing, I didn't feel vindicated. I felt free. Some nights, I still get emails. Long, rambling paragraphs filled with guilt, desperation, even apologies. I don't respond. Not out of cruelty, but because there's nothing left to say. That version of me, the one who gave endlessly, forgave endlessly, waited endlessly, is dead. I buried him the day she walked out the door. Now I live a life of my choosing. I answer to no one. I love the quiet. I savor the peace. And I've learned that revenge doesn't always come with fire and fury. Sometimes, it comes with a plain ticket, a signature on paper, and the sound of silence on the other end of the line. They chose chaos. I chose clarity. And in the end, that's what truly broke them. Looking back, I've come to realize that betrayal doesn't always come with shouting or slammed doors. Sometimes, it arrives slowly, hidden behind familiar smiles and quiet routines. The biggest lesson I learned through all of this is simple. Peace is priceless, and self-respect must never be negotiated. I gave everything, my money, my time, my love, to people who saw it as entitlement, not sacrifice. And when they crossed the line, I didn't scream or beg. I chose to walk away with my dignity intact. For those of us in the later chapters of life, this truth matters more than ever. We've spent decades building, giving, enduring. But we must also know when to stop pouring into broken vessels. Loyalty should never be blind. And love, no matter how deep, must never be one-sided. If someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Set boundaries. Protect your peace. And if the time comes when letting go is the only way to heal, do it without hesitation. Because in the end, it's not about revenge. It's about reclaiming your worth. I didn't just survive the betrayal. I redefined who I was because of it. And I've never been freer.